Kimbrell's doing some setting up over here. We're going to go ahead and get started. When he gets all set up, I'm going to turn the program over to him. So I'll stall for a minute. And I know it looks like the parking lot's full, but that they were all coming here. I was a little concerned that everybody was coming here, but it's Boys and Girls Club summer camp registration. So I figured out maybe everybody's going to get the questions answered. My name is Shane Broadway, and I am the chairman of the Bryant Building for Tomorrow Committee. And that is a grassroots committee made up of many individuals across the Bryant School District who have become involved in this Bryant Millage election to help educate the patrons of the Bryant School District, parents, students, families, and others about the need for this election and this millage, and to help educate everyone and to help answer questions. And so that is the reason we wanted to have this opportunity tonight to allow people to come and go as they please, but to have a presentation. We've asked Dr. Kimbrell to be here. He is only going to be presenting information. He is not here in a capacity to speak for or against. That is not his role. That is the role of our committee, is to try to encourage you to vote in favor. He is here to provide information. If there are questions that he cannot answer, then I will try to address some of those. Our committee has been working actively to provide information to the citizens. We have a campaign headquarters in the Lender's Title Building at the corner of Highway 5 and Reynolds Road. So if any of you after tonight would like to volunteer, knocking on doors, making phone calls, those types of things, it's at the back of the Lender's Title Building, room 300. You go up the stairs. We have someone who's going to be there all week. They can provide you other information that you might want or need, or if you would like to volunteer, we'd certainly welcome your help between now and then. Early voting starts tomorrow at Grace Church. There's one location, which is on Highway 5, just past Larry's Pizza. Everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that. Grace Church is on the left there. You can start voting from 10 to 4:30, beginning tomorrow through Friday. And then at the Vote Here building in Benton is starting tomorrow, and I believe that's different hours. What's the hours at the Vote Here building? I got it.
10 to 4.
Not the Vote Here Center.
Oh, it's 8.
I think it's 8 to 4 at the Vote Here Center. Vote Here Center is 8 to 4:30. And that will be beginning tomorrow through Friday, and then again on Monday. Vote Here Center is the only place you can vote on Monday. You can't vote at Grace Church on Monday. And then there will be 10 election polling places on Tuesday, March 10th, that you can vote at. So I've got several things that I will maybe add in terms of why I am supporting this millage. I will just address a couple of them, and then I want to ask Dr. Kimbrell if he wants to start out explaining the process that they've gone through, or if you want to just start with questions. Okay. A couple of things I will say. I've been involved in the school facilities for about the last decade now. The state of Arkansas lost a lawsuit while I was a member of the Senate. It's called Lakeview. Many of you have been around in Arkansas for the last decade in regards to schools and school funding and school facilities. At the time, I was a member of the Senate Education Committee when I represented this area in the Senate, and I was asked to be in charge of the state's response to school facilities. At the time, we didn't even know how many we had around the state. And so we did a complete inventory of all schools, all policies, and developed a program for a partnership between the state and school districts that included a state investment part of that is because what Lakeview basically determined is that every child, regardless of address, regardless of where they live, is to receive an adequate education in an adequate facility. And so we set about trying to determine that. And basically what Lakeview means in a nutshell, nothing else, it means if the local district fails to provide that adequate education, then the state must compel it to act. Okay? And I say that for two reasons. It's an important reason of why we're in this situation and why we're here. The way we had to respond to that lawsuit, and when we wrote the legislation, we were still under court order. We had to show to the court the state was strong in terms of we're going to meet our obligation as a state, and we're going to hold districts accountable to that. And so we developed the program and developed what will happen if a district does not respond to its needs. So, as such is the case as we are in, the state has identified that we are going to have an average of about 300 students per year in growth. This is not something the Bryant School District came up with. Part of the requirements of the State Division of Public Facilities and Transportation is to provide that forecast of what your district's enrollment is going to be over 10 years, correct? So it has all of the information at its disposal to make a prediction in terms of what your enrollment is going to be and what your need is going to be. So they're the ones, when you see a figure of about 300 students per year, that's not something that Tom Kimbrell come up with or I came up with. That's coming from the state of Arkansas based on their projections. So we went through this process back last year, the Bryant School District, and it failed. Under the way the process works, you've got two tracks before the state has to then come in and make some decisions. As a district, we are only required to provide 38 units of instruction at the high school level. At Bryant, we provide over 200 programs for our students, and that's primarily, I think, a lot of reason why students come. Whether it's extracurricular activities, or if it's robotics, or EAST, or you name the program, all of those are done above and beyond the required 38 units of instruction. If we fail to take action, this is our second and last strike, I guess is one way you can say. The state will then be compelled to come in and sit down with the district, and at worst, could place the district in facility distress and take over the district, which you know has occurred. I don't think that will be the solution, but you notice they have taken over districts, and he was commissioner, he had to take over districts who did not meet their local need, and so the state had to compel them to act. I think it will be somewhere in between that and somewhere coming in and giving us, okay, this is the plan. So regardless of what happens with this election, we as taxpayers and patrons of this district are still going to have to build new buildings. There's still going to be students who are going to be coming and using our facilities, and he can give you more information in terms of the capacity of our current facilities. So the decision is ours. And I would rather us make that decision about the future of our school district than have the state do it. Because when the state does it, we don't have the resources at our disposal. For instance, one elementary school is $17 million. They don't have the cash on hand to go and build that space, but you've got to have a roof over that student's head. A portable building is not a long-term solution under the state standards. It's not an education solution, period. So you've got to have a roof over that student's head, so you've got to build that building, and when the district doesn't have the resources to build that building, they've got to go reduce programs. And a lot of those programs are important programs and are a reason why students have come to this district. And there are a lot of other things that go along with it. Second, I trust this man. I trust his vision, I trust his leadership. I've known him for almost 20 years. He has seen, as a superintendent and as Commissioner of Education, where we worked along side by side as I was Director of Higher Education. He's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of the bad and the ugly. So he knows through those experiences, and I think he's going to be an even better superintendent the second time around based on everything that he has seen. But you ask anybody around in education circles about the respect and trust and admiration for this man. And so he came to me, he had to sell me first. I'm a taxpayer too. I had to be sold that this is what we have to do as a district. I believe him, I trust his vision for this district, and I believe that he and the school board together have come up with a long-term solution that addresses our long-term needs, as well as the immediate needs that we're going to have to address as a district. And I believe that he will do it in the right way, and a way that you as a taxpayer and as a patron of this school district will be very proud of. So, having said that, I'm going to turn it over to you, let you make any presentation. We want to be here as long as you need to be in terms of answering any questions or concerns or addressing anything that you have. This is your forum. I'm done talking, which I know you'll be excited to hear. But I did want to provide you some of that background and history in terms of my involvement and why I'm here. I think the last thing I would say is, any of you who live in this school district, or own a business in this school district, or even if you are a renter in this school district, you are a stockholder in this school. I chose about 19 years ago to make an investment in my hometown. I bought a home. I wanted to be here because this is where I'm from. But also, I made an investment on the long term that the school district, which is the center of our community, was going to remain strong. There are many parts of this state where I would not go and buy a piece of property, knowing that my investment is probably going to go down. And a lot of it has to do with the school and in those communities. So I made an investment anticipating and expecting that my school district would remain strong for if I ever had to make a decision to go somewhere else. My investment, I would be able to reap my reward. So you are a stockholder. We don't have rentals and alcohol like we used to. We don't have a lot of major industry within the confines of the district. We're working to change this. I'm chairman of the Saline County Economic Development Corporation. That's our other job. But in the meantime, our largest employer and our economic driver, and the reason why restaurants and stores and shops and businesses open in this area is this school district. It's the reason I stayed here. It's the reason some of you moved here. And how that school district rises and falls, so does the value of the stock that we have invested. Whether it's your property value, whether it's your business, whatever it may be. So goes this district, so goes your stock. So I just encourage you to think about that. Dr. Kimball, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Broadway. Can everybody hear me? Because I don't like to stand behind the podium and it's not the best setup, and I apologize for that. And apologize for having to put all this together while Mr. Broadway was speaking. But Shane asked me to come and do a presentation, hoping that people who wanted to learn more about our proposal, to learn about how we got where we're at with this, and why we got here, would be able to, one, see what process we went through, two, be able to see what we've developed as a plan, and three, be able to ask your questions. If I can answer your questions, I'll answer your questions. If I don't have the answer to your question, I will find the answer to your question, if there is one. And there are questions that are unanswered. There are things we can't predict. But we began this process several months ago. We did it because the board wanted to set a new vision and goal about what the purpose of the Bryant Public Schools District was. And we did this going out and doing over 25 different meetings. Meetings with staff, PTOs, parents, community members, and we began to ask questions about what were the district's strengths, weaknesses, what were their opportunities, and what were the threats that existed about the continued improvement and viability of this school district. We also brought these students in from the middle school and the high school and asked them a lot of questions. Got a lot of information from them. From that, the board then sat down and really defined the vision of the Bryant School District. And it became clear. This board and this community want to be the best school district in the state of Arkansas. And as Shane has said, I've had a unique opportunity to be able to be in a lot of positions and visit a lot of school districts in the state of Arkansas, and I can tell you that I can't think of one school district that I haven't gotten to visit in the last 9 years working in a state position. So I can tell you with a lot of, I think, experience that this community and the communities that make up the Bryant School District have more pride in this school than any I've ever been around. And getting to this vision is very possible. Bryant schools have always been good schools. And I think they can be the best school district in the state of Arkansas because it is very evident that there is support for making that happen. There's high expectations that we want this to happen for our kids. From that work, 5 goals were developed. We began to flesh out the first goal, and that goal was around ensuring that our students had both facilities that were safe, secure, and conducive for learning. We also made sure that the first priority in these goals was to ensure that we had sufficient classroom space. Right now, we're at 93% at least capacity in our buildings with our students. Some of our schools are almost completely full. We may have 1 third grade slot open, maybe 1 kindergarten slot open. Our high school has over 2,750 students on it today. That facility was never designed for that number of students. So the strategic plan revolved around how do we begin to address that issue. As we know, people are choosing to move to Bryant. They're choosing to move to Bryant. If you ask them, you'll find a lot of those people, if not the vast majority, maybe even, I know more than half the students that are moving here and their parents are coming because of the schools. Had nothing to do with what I did or have done. It's a result of what has happened in this school district for many years. There's been a solid foundation in this school district for high expectations of student achievement as well as community support for this school. We know that we're going to be gaining an average of 300 students a year for the next 10 years. This is what the state actually provides to us. These numbers came long before what we know has happened in Little Rock. And we know, and Mr. McGowan can attest to this, and he's been in the office and taken phone calls and met with parents, we got more people coming because of what's happened in Little Rock. People wanting to move and bring their children to our school district because they feel very comfortable that they can get a good education there. Currently, we enroll over 9,050 students. That fluctuates. At one point in time, this year we had over 9,100 students. We started this year with a little over 9,000, which was about 240 more than what we ended last year. But we also see, looking at the formula that the state uses, there will be some times that we'll actually gain 360 students. There'll be some years we may gain 280. It averages out to about 300. So in 10 years, we should have projected another 3,000 students in this school system. It's got a good reputation. That reputation, I think, comes from the fact that people have seen results. And I think that we should be result driven. And people should have expectations for the school to be a good school. But with that type of reputation, it creates some challenges for us. Those challenges are, how do we house and educate these students? Right now, over 2,700 students at the high school. Our cafeteria, Mr. Curtis, I think you can attest to this, we can't get our students into the cafeterias and get them fed within the 3 lunch periods that we run. Just because it doesn't happen. The capacity's not there. It was never designed to hold that many students. We don't have space for career education expansion. We don't have space for our music education program and the expansion of that program. And our gymnasium and our auditorium were built when the capacity for that school was less than half of what it is today. They're inadequate for what we have on that campus. So, in 2013, this district partnered with the state of Arkansas to address this issue through its partnership program. And let me stop for a minute and try to answer some questions that I've been seeing and have been asked of me. The state ensures that there is a certain amount of money for every student. This year, that's $6,521 per student. We raised a portion of that here with the first 25 mills that you pay in your property taxes. Every school district has to do that. It goes into a special school tax. That's what the Supreme Court calls it. That special school tax then is then redistributed across all school districts to make up the shortfall that districts such as ours have. I'll give you some round numbers. If it's $6,500, we in Bryant School District raised just under $2,000 of that $6,500. The state then gives us $4,500 plus for every student to get to that $6,500. But that $6,500 has nothing to do and is not to be used and can't be used for constructing facilities. Under the guidance of our former senator over here, there was a funding matrix created in 2003 and then redone in 2006. Well, actually recalibrated in 2008. In that matrix, it outlines what you're to spend that money on. Instruction, teachers, administration, utilities, maintenance and operation, technology. There are no funds in that for facilities. As the former senator said, to address the courts about facilities, they created this partnership program. And the state has partnered many times with this district to create facility opportunities. This district has had the good fortune of being able to partner with the state on several projects and receive several millions of dollars, upwards of $50 to $60 million over the last 8 years. This partnership program came about in 2013 to address the issues of this growing population. And as the senator said, the district in 2014 asked the public to increase its millage to help raise its share. In other words, the state says, we'll partner with you at a certain percentage, but you have to come up with your share. And you got 2 shots to do that. We've had 1 shot, we got a second shot. When the first one didn't, they said, you've got some immediate needs. You've got some growth issues facing you today. How are you going to fix that? In the spring of 2013, this district sat down with the Facilities Division and worked out an immediate needs plan. And in that plan, there was an expansion of Collegeville Elementary School, an expansion of Davis Elementary School, roofing projects at the high school, and some renovations at the high school. Those projects are being done right now. And we're using approximately a little over $3 million out of that $21.1 million to do those immediate needs projects. The state said, that's fine. Now, what is your plan to address the issues of this continued growth that you have in the district? So, that's where we're at today. We're asking to find a way to fund our matching share. The one thing that we continue to hear when we were out into the public was, is there some way you can create a plan that's beyond the typical 4 to 5 years that we've had in this district? Because that's the typical cycle that we've run into. We pass a millage, 4 to 5 years later, you're coming back asking for another millage. And it seems that we're piecemealing this every 4 to 5 years. We were comfortable going out 10 years because we had the growth projections out that far. So we developed a plan. Our website has the entire plan on it. You can read about it. I won't go into all the details unless you ask me to go into the details. But we're asking at this point to try to fund a 10-year plan. What does this do? It asks for additional 4.9 mills. It takes us from being the lowest millage rate in the county to what would be then the highest millage rate in the county at 42.1 mills. You can see from the slide that the other 3 districts in this county have a higher millage rate. This would take us to being the highest millage rate in the county. What does that cost? We try to allow people to, a chart so that they could look, what does this increase actually mean to me? We broke it down by what the daily increase would be, the monthly increase, and what the years. It's about $100 for every $100,000 of property value. So people who have property, you know what yours, and this is assessed value, this is not actual value. This is what the assessment office assesses your value of your property at, and I'll promise you, you wouldn't want to sell your property at what the assessor's office assesses it at. But you can kind of extrapolate depending upon where your property values are there. And it's about $100 for every 100,000. What are the proposed projects? A new cafeteria on the high school to feed our students. More than half of our students sit outside and eat. They sit on the stairs, they get under the canopies, they're in between buildings, they're eating it because they can't get into the cafeteria. It's just not possible. The conversion of Building 2, that's one of the older buildings there. There are spaces there that were used for the old media center and other offices that we want to convert to classroom spaces. A lot of those buildings on that campus are buildings that were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They don't have the electrical capacity for today's delivery of education. Our classrooms today are so different than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and vastly different than what we saw 30 years ago. We're very close to being one-to-one with our computer technology, with our students. We want to get there next year so that our students have the latest technologies available to help them as a learning tool. So we want to do and need to do electrical upgrades as well as some HVAC upgrades. A lot of those HVAC systems are old and inefficient. The construction of a new elementary school. As I told you, our elementary schools are full. The expansion of Collegeville and Davis will allow us another year and then the second year. We have to have a new elementary school online in order to meet that growing population of elementary students. A new middle school. This is so that we can take advantage of the current middle school that we have at Bryant, converting it to a junior high to take students off the high school campus and give relief there. Also, with that would be additions and renovations at Bryant Elementary in order to bring those up to a level of acceptance for our parents and our students. The big key to this is the creation of a junior high versus a sole middle school configuration. In order to get some space at the high school, the plan is to pull the 9th grade students off the high school, relieving about 720 to 750 students over the next several years on that campus. Convert the current middle school to a junior high and have 8th and 9th grade. So all of our 8th and 9th grade students would be on that one campus, leaving our middle schools to have 2 grades. Okay, those grades would be grades 6 and 7. Therefore, relieving about 450 to 500 students on each of those 2 campuses. You build a new middle school, Bethel then would have that 8th grade off of its campus, leaving room for growth there. At that junior high, we would see 16 additional classrooms, a new larger cafeteria to meet that larger population that we'll have there, renovating the current cafeteria into a larger media center to meet those needs, and also an expansion of the band and instrumental music and choral programs, as well as a new PE facility, because we would take the old PE facility at the elementary and actually use it as expanded instrumental music, choral music, and band, and then create a new space for elementary, where we could actually physically separate those students. So the elementary students and junior high students wouldn't be able to commingle in the building and actually move the elementary students into one complex. So they don't have to go across the street to PE. They don't have to go across the street to music. Theirs would be self-contained in the one building. Some of the additional projects at the high school would be a new arena to have not only our school and district events, but also community events. a performing arts facility. Tomorrow night, our choral music program will be presenting 3 different groups will be presenting concerts. They're at, I believe it's Park Place Baptist, because our current facility will not hold the parents. It won't hold the parents so that they can do their concert. This would create a fine arts facility to meet the high school of that size. Then, as we continue to progress, we would update and renovate existing spaces on the high school campus to get them up to the code and the expectations that we have. And then continue to address safety, security issues by putting card readers and locks on all of our elementary schools to ensure that people just can't walk into our elementary and our middle schools. That is going to be a tough address at Dr. Pickering School at the high school. But we believe there's some things that we can do. We've seen things happen at Conway, we've seen things happen at Cabot, and we think it's a good model for us to follow. If you haven't been to those 2 districts, you can go see what can actually happen under this plan. You can see the drawings over there. I won't spend any more time on this, but these are just conceptual drawings of what we would be talking about. I will just mention here on the bottom is the elementary school conversion. All of this new space would be new junior high. That would be junior high, and then the new PE facility would be right here for the elementary. Renovation of the kitchen and cafeteria at that elementary school. Mr. Broadway, that's my presentation. I can either take questions now, or we do have a student who did.
Oh, yes. Get back to the agenda. Still that tape.
On that proposed project that you have up there, is that prioritized in order, or is that something that if it passes, all of those are going to happen?
Yes, all of those would happen. Every one of those projects would happen. Let me see if I can get.
Is there a time frame?
3 years. 3 years. New middle school, new elementary school, cafeteria, fine arts, arena, upgrades, all those things would happen within a 3-year time frame.
Before we go to other questions, we do have a student who wanted to speak from a student's perspective, who emailed Dr. Kimball the other day and visited with him. Carl, you're here? Carl, come on up and talk about this from your perspective. It's important that they hear from the student. Thank you for being here.
My name is Carl Radcliffe, and this is my 5th year in the Bryant High School District, and this is my 3rd year being a high school ambassador, which means I stand before the student body, and what the student body sees from this perspective. Once we first heard this millage, this really excited us. This is something we have wanted for years, a long time coming. When we first heard this has been the talk of the school. To finally receive things that we need in order to further our education. It has been difficult, and I cannot stress that enough. It has been difficult over the last few years as far as fine arts is concerned, music is concerned, cafeteria is concerned, athletics are concerned. We do not have the facilities that we need in order to do what we want to do. From a student standpoint, as we go and we travel to other competitors throughout the state, and I travel with the high school basketball team since I manage the boys team, we see what these other communities have done for their schools, and it's truly remarkable. And after next year, Bentonville, I believe they will be splitting their high school, and we will be the largest high school in the state. And in order for us to be the largest high school in the state, from a student standpoint, we believe that our community needs to step up in order for us to have the facilities we need. We take pride in what we go to school at. You all have done an amazing job with our high school, and we are very grateful for it. And we're asking you if you can take the next step to help us to go to where we want to go. We want to be the best school in the state of Arkansas. And this plan that we have tonight will help us achieve that plan. There are many people in the community who are voting no for this. But if you can see from a student standpoint what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, it would instantly change your mind. I've talked to Dr. Kimball about this. If there was some kind of way to open up a high school to the public, and of course due to safety issues, that's not possible. But if you were able to go through the day of a student through our high school, you would see what we have to deal with, and you would not want to deal with that. It is tough. I can say it is tough to be in this predicament as a student, that our education, that our future lies in the community's hands. And the reason why I say that is because I hear a lot from the community that they think that this is unnecessary for us. And I promise you that this is 100% necessary for us. First of all, as far as the cafeteria is concerned, there are a lot of students who have to eat outside. Regardless of what the weather is like, they have to eat outside. They eat outside in the rain, they eat outside in the cold. Some students eat inside in stairwells, even though we're not able to. And then according to the rules, and due to safety reasons, we have to be kicked out. And that's understandable. And with this new proposed plan, we'll be able to finally eat in the cafeteria. This cafeteria is old, it's run down, and it's not suitable for us anymore. In order for us to eat lunch, to feed everyone in 30 minutes, that's not even possible. There are numerous students who are late for class because we're not able to eat in our cafeteria in time. And it should not be. It should not be. Since we will be the largest high school in the state, having the lowest millage in the county is not going to work for us. If we want to do what we need to do, if we want to have the best high school in this community, we have to have this millage passed. We have to. And as far as the arena is concerned, right now we get ready to go to state later on this week. And the way that they have it divided is that they hosted in Central Arkansas one year, and they hosted in Northwestern Arkansas the next year, and they rotate. And what they do, they look for the best communities to host the tournament. And if Bryant has this millage proposed, we're pretty much guaranteed to be able to host the tournament. What does that mean for us? Business and growth for the community. Because of that, there will be 3 to 4 days, hotel money will increase, shopping will increase. All of these different businesses will be coming here because of the state tournament. Therefore, not only will the students be able to benefit, but the community will be able to benefit from this. So it's just not benefiting the students, but if we look at the long run here, the community will be able to benefit from this. I was reading an article earlier this week that they deem that the Bryant community is one of the best in the country. And I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that because of the education that we provide, because of the people that live in the city, and for what you all have done for us. But if we want to maintain that standard of being one of the best communities in this country, we're going to have this millage passed. That is the only way. I was talking to my advisor today in newspaper. This is my first year, and I asked her, what will happen to our program if this millage is not passed? She said, Carl, our program is going to be cut. There will be no more yearbook. There will not be another newspaper. All of that's going to be taken away from us. Our electives that we have, such as cosmetology, it won't be there anymore. Welding won't be there anymore. Not everyone is made to go to college. And so what they do, what Bryant has done, what you all have opened up the door of opportunity for us, is to find our passion now. Because I know that there are students who are in welding who has found their passion, and that's where they want to go now. And this will not be made possible to the hundreds of students that will be coming in the future if the millage fails. Because the state deems that things such as that cosmetology, the unnecessary things that a high school needs, they're going to cut that. Therefore, we won't find what we need. And it's heartbreaking. I have many peers, I actually know of 2, who will be able to go to Fayetteville in engineering. And the only way that they'll be able to do that is because of the program, the engineering program that we have here at Bryant. Now let's say we did not have that program. Where would their future be? And the thing is, that's only 2 students. And there's over 2,000 students on the campus. You all make the difference in our lives. And we are tremendously grateful. And if you want to continue investing and putting seeds in our lives, you have to have this millage passed. I know that taxes will increase. and it's going to hurt a little bit on the budget. We understand that. But I promise you that it's worth it. Because not only are you just giving your money away, but you are truly investing in every life that walks through Bryant High School. Every single life. Is that not worth it? Is that not worth it? I understand that $200 may come from your annual budget. But just imagine the thousands, I'm not talking about hundreds, but thousands of students that will benefit from your effort right now. From your effort of getting this millage passed, you will make a difference in thousands of students' lives. Thousands. You all are setting us up for success in the future. Because of where we are now, and if we continue to have this millage passed, students will be able to go into college as sophomores. I will be able to go into college next year as a sophomore because they have partnered up with the UALR college, and we'll be able to receive early credit. If this millage does not pass, most likely that's going to fail, and that's going to be cut out. And then what? There's going to be thousands of dollars we're going to have to pay out of our pockets. That's going to be a longer time we have to take in order to get a college degree. Right now, we only have to pay $50 for each class. $50 compared to thousands of dollars for one class. It's pretty worth it. I think that's worth it. So what I stand here tonight is to ask you all, and for you all to go with your colleagues and your peers to ask them to please vote yes. From the student body, we are asking you to vote yes. We can't vote on this. Majority of the students cannot vote on this. And if we did have a say, I promise you, those election stands will be filled up with students. You probably couldn't get in there. Because we understand how important this is to us. I'm a high school senior. This will not benefit me at all whatsoever. But I decided to come here tonight before the community and speak on behalf of the future students and the lives of the future students to please vote yes. Please, please vote yes. This would mean the world to us. This would truly mean the world to us. And that's all I have to say.
That's pretty good. You said we were going to college yet? I don't know what else can be said after that. You can't say anything. Yeah, but I don't know what else can be said. All right. Thank you. That, I'm not sure it can ever be put any better. According to here from the student perspective more than mine. So, as a former student where we didn't have air conditioning. Until after we left, right, Rick? That's right. All right, questions from any of you in terms of Dr. Kimbrell's presentation or any other item about it?
I would like to say one thing about Carl's presentation. Carl came and interviewed me a couple of 3, 4, maybe a month ago about this with prospective newspaper, student newspaper. And Carl asked a lot of good questions. He wrote a good article. I read it, kept it, and out of the blue last week, Carl said, "What is a public forum?" And if it's a public forum, as I think it would be, is there an opportunity for me as a student to come speak? And I said, a public forum is exactly that. We will open, I guess you would open this up to anybody who wants to speak, either for or against, because we want people to hear, we want people to express their concerns, express their beliefs. And Carl said, "Thank you, I want to be there." So I hope anyone here or anyone listening, I hope you don't think that we asked Carl to do this. We couldn't have asked Carl to do what he did today because you've heard what he talked about. It's passion. You don't get people to do things for you and have that kind of passion. This came from a young man's heart. So it's not something we set up. It's not something we asked. He asked because he cares that much. So thank you, Carl, for that. Questions? Yes, sir.
My daughter, I graduated from Bryant, and I know we need a lot of these buildings. My daughter has had the issue of being in the rain at lunchtime, having to have, eat underneath the overhang. I know we need a cafeteria, and I heard recently
that the cafeteria was gonna cost us $7 million and the state was gonna kick in $3 million. And I was trying, and they were asking to justify that amount of money for one building for cafeteria. Could you explain to me how many it's gonna hold and prepare for the future and what's gonna be in there?
Yes, sir. What we've asked the architect firm and the construction management firm is to give us estimates for what we know to be the next capacity at that facility, which is again about 2,700, 2,800 students. And in order to do that under the 2 lunch program, which under our current system we have 9th graders eat, I believe, 1 lunch, and then we split the other 2 into 2 lunches. So we've asked them to design a facility that would feed half of that, 1,400 per lunch, and be able to do it within a 30-minute period. We've looked at a couple of different delivery models. We looked at what Conway's done, and we've looked at what Cabot has done. And we've watched what Cabot has been able to do. Up until this year, they had one of the largest high schools besides Bentonville. They're sort of larger than ours. Within 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, they have every one of half of their population. They have their food, their setting, and their eating. This design would be a food court design in which you would have 8 different options for students, and they would move quickly through, and within 8 to 10 minutes, they would have their food, giving them 20 minutes to eat their lunch. So we wanted to build it with the capacity to get to our next capacity 10 years down the road of 2,800 students on that. So it's going to cost those kinds of dollars. That's an estimate. We don't know what the actual cost may be less, may be a little bit more, but we know we're going to have to be within that budget.
It has nothing to do with leads, though.
No, sir. This is not a LEED certified building. These buildings, if you look at the designs, they're not boxes. They're not concrete cinder block buildings with 2 windows in them. They have and utilize some natural light, but they will be constructed at the best square foot cost we can engineer out. Yes, sir.
I think one of my concerns is, I've been here 8 years and I've seen 4 new schools come in. None of them were designed for growth in the process. We've already outgrown them. How can we be assured that we're not going to be in the same position with just a 10-year plan out with an auditorium that's only going to hold 2,200 people and we still don't have the room on the high school level to develop?
Well, and that's what we would do. By taking 725 students off that campus, you give yourself 10 years growth. I would be really, I couldn't sit in front of you and tell you that I can predict or project out more than 10 years what the delivery method is even going to be at the high school. We started this year with virtual delivery. We have students that are taking virtual courses. My hope and my goal is that in 4 or 5 years, we'll have some students that will actually be attending our high school, but half the day, maybe even the full day, they're not on campus. They're virtually learning, much like we're seeing a lot of our colleges go to. The state actually passed a law in the 13th session requiring that every one of this year's 9th grade students have to have a virtual course before they graduate from high school. That's expanding. Going out beyond 10 years, I think, would be irresponsible for me to be able to say, well, this is what I predict in 10 years. I do know what the numbers indicate for us for 10 years. And we've got 16 years of data to support the continuation of those numbers. So the board and the district decided in a very debated way to keep their elementary schools at 624 students. Now you may say, why 624? That's 5 kindergarten and 4 classrooms, grades 1 through 5. That's to keep them neighborhood generated, where students, teachers, parents still know one another. Some districts have chosen a different model. A good example is Springdale. They build their elementary schools with 1,200 students in them. They build big elementary schools. Our district has chosen to keep that model where we build in neighborhoods where kids can be and go into school with students that they know, and parents know who the teachers are know who the parents are, etc. So what we're looking at is building our middle school and our junior high to take that capacity. I'm going to tell you, at 10 years, when we've grown 3,000 more students, as we said, there will have to be a decision about the high school at that point. Do you do what Bentonville's done and split into 2 high schools? Rogers done it, Springdale's done it. Do you do what Conway's done? Just build a bigger high school? Or you do what Cabot's done? They built a ninth grade academy, took all their ninth graders off, and as they continue to grow, and their growth has really stopped, pretty much, then their next plan would be to take the 10th graders and build a 10th grade wing on there. And you'd have 9th and 10th grade on one campus, 11 and 12 on the other. That's a decision that I think this community will have to make about year 8, 9 as to what your plans are going to be. I just think it'd be irresponsible to go further out than 10 years. I don't know how we predict that. Education's changing so fast. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said that most of these would take place in 3 years.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a 5th grader. My youngest is in 5th grade. Is she going to make it to the new junior high school, or will she make it to the new 8th and 9th grade campus at Bryant Middle currently?
Well, she would be in the new, she'd be, your question is, would she make it to the new junior high?
Yeah, because
She's
of the fact that she's going into 6th grade next year.
Yes.
And it's a 3-year plan. Okay.
Yes.
That creates a transportation issue for me, and your district is going to tell me that they don't provide transportation for parents that live within 2 miles of the school. I live flat 2 miles in between Hill Farm and Bryant Elementary, so you're gonna have my 6th grader walking down Reynolds Road alone without anyone to help her because I work during the day. Then I have to be late to drop both my high schooler and my middle schooler off. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
I'm in an awkward position that a lot of parents are, but I can't get transportation for one or the other to relieve me to make it to work at Little Rock on time. And that's where my problem comes in at. Otherwise, I would go vote yes right away. But I've received resistance in the past from the district on transportation, and ultimately did get a school choice application eventually for relief, and got my daughter at Bryant Elementary and my other at Bryant Middle. They're on the same campus, and they walk together to the library. But now they would be split. Do you see what I'm saying?
They would be split because of the Hill Farm. Because your daughter is what grade?
5th and 8th.
Well, no, in 3 years they wouldn't be, because you'd have the junior high, which is,
Right, that's what I'm saying. Will my daughter make it to the junior high before she has to go to Hill Farm, since she's in 5th?
yes,
Now-
I think the middle school, elementary school, and the junior high would go online in 17, 18. So that's.
You got me. I'm good.
But I mean,
Okay.
that's a huge issue that we struggle with.
Yeah,
I mean, we
know.
talked about how, you would, what would it take to transport any kid who wanted to be transported? And it's a matter of one of buses, but the biggest issue is bus drivers.
Yeah, and I even asked if I could drop my kids off at a current bus stop and let them ride together. I mean, I didn't want the school to make an extra stop for me. I was willing to go that extra mile.
Right.
Can you tell me where to go to a current? They would not give them a pass. They would not. So my kids walk to the library every day, and they sit there until I can get there
To the public library.
to the public
Yes.
library. Because my oldest is now, she's to the point she can't go to the club.
To the Boys and Girls Club.
She's too old. So she's aged out of the system where, as years ago, I had help.
I think those are issues that we need to talk about and discuss. I don't, again, we're finding that I'm finding that there's some issues. I've got a couple of board members here. Appreciate them being here and hearing your concerns. Those are just
Yeah, just
topics
some
that we have to discuss.
potential opportunity for parents to say, you can drop them off here at this location and they can ride a bus. I know there are seats available on a lot of these buses, and it wouldn't cause the bus driver to pick up anywhere else than they already pick up. This is the closest stop to your house.
Right.
This is the one that will zone your kid and they won't need a pass. That would be an amazing step and an assistance for transportation for parents like me in the morning.
That's what we need to hear. That's why we're having this meeting. I appreciate that.
Let me ask back, that's a great question. Let me ask back on the question about, for instance, the auditorium, whatever it's called. Are there ways, I speak about the current gymnasium, which was not designed, they were finally able to bust out one wall and add some seats. And it's probably more a question for the architect related to this question, but can those buildings be designed where if you've got 10 years, had to add on because you didn't have space. Depending on where you put them, can they be laid out in a way that that is a potential opportunity?
It's definitely one we can ask that question. And in the design of those facilities, you could ask that they be expanded.
But
Is
I think that's one of the biggest issues, because obviously money needs to be used and spent. But it's been spent very unwisely in the 8 years that I've been here. And I don't want to see that repeated, and us have to pinpoint and put buildings or schools all around the district just to meet these pods of need. I think developmentally, they can be designed where growth can be tacked on when the need fits. But right now, we're just getting taxed right and left, and I'm afraid that's the direction we're going to be heading again.
I understand what you're talking about. Do you have, I assume you have a different opinion then about our elementary schools trying to maintain a small 625 instead of going larger?
With $15 million being on a building like that, I think design ought to account for growth.
If you're going to build a new one, it'll account for being able to expand it at
Exactly.
the
Well,
same site.
actually,
Exactly.
That's
they're,
what you're doing now with the current elementary. right?
yeah, with college in Collegeville and Davis, we are expanding those and adding classrooms to go online in August just to house the kids that we know are coming next year. So we did that and consciously, and I think that's, it's good that the board heard what you had to say there. They consciously made the decision at this point to build their elementary schools to house that number and keep them in neighborhoods. Part of it is so that students will have an opportunity to go to a neighborhood type school versus having to go all the way across town to a large mega elementary school. Whereas our middle schools and our junior high will be those bigger schools with greater efficiency. And I can't answer the question about how building funds have been built in the past. I can answer one question that has been relayed to us about how the district runs and whether it's an efficient system and have good use of the dollars been there. One of the things that we found in some research that we did last week, Dr. Walters did, our district spends less than almost every school district in the state of Arkansas per student in its state and local funds. And this is state numbers, this is not our numbers. If you look at the last report on the Arkansas Department of Education website, we spend a little over $7,200 per student to educate our students. That's fifth from the bottom. We're the fifth lowest expenditure per student in the state. What's really amazing is it sixth? I'm sorry, sixth. What's really amazing is the next one, right below us, spending less than us, is Benton. Then Sheridan's in that same group of six, and so is Bauxite. So this area of our community region is some of the most efficient schools that we have in the state of Arkansas. And I've looked at that data before, but I was always looking at the other end. The districts that were spending the most money were the districts that had the greatest needs. They had the most difficult, challenging population. So I have to give a lot of credit when it comes to how we've managed money. That's part of growth. You're almost forced to do that because you're growing so fast that your classrooms are full. You're real efficient that way. But just to give you a little more information, there's a lot of good decisions that have been made. But there has been a conscious decision to keep the elementary schools that small. But at least two of our board members have heard your comment about that. They may want to revisit that down the road. But we won't design any buildings that couldn't be expanded. Hill Farm Elementary can be expanded. It can be expanded. It's built to be expanded. Yes, sir.
You said that there's a breakdown of all the expenditures and what all this is going to cost?
There is on the website.
On the website?
An estimated cost based upon what the architect and construction managers gave us for housing this number of students in these facilities.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we need a $13 million cafeteria? Is that what we need?
In order to be able to meet the needs of the population of 2,800 students on that campus, be able to feed them in a timely manner.
I get that.
Yes, sir. That's what they're telling us.
13 million.
It's
22 million for an arena?
yes, sir.
This is all required, right?
No,
for our
sir.
education.
No, we're
Kids'
not saying
education.
all of it's required. I mean,
Well,
we
but this is on the-
specifically said that there are other projects on here that people in the community have said, we'd like to see happen. I mean, you don't have to have an arena. Matter of fact, if this doesn't pass, we're gonna play basketball in that same gym. We're gonna do the best we can with what we have.
You may not play basketball. You may have to put it on the building.
Yeah, it may not be, depending upon what role the state ends up playing. But if we play basketball next year, we're gonna play in that gymnasium, and we're gonna make the best of it that we possibly can. That's what we're gonna do.
If you were gonna build a new high school today, if Bentonville's building a new high school, what's the price tag for a brand new, starting from scratch high school?
I don't know what Bentonville's is, I do know what North Little Rock's is. North Little Rock's high school is $113 million for just the high school. It'll be the most expensive built high school in the state of Arkansas, ever. But it'll be a large high school.
So normally it's around 90 million to 100 million.
Again, depending upon how many students.
Brand new high school.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to educate 500 students, it's going to be less. Yes.
So according to the state website that you mentioned earlier, the Bryant School District reported on the audited financials that you received $9,700 per student last year. That included, I think, $1,000 of financing, bond issuance or something, so roughly $8,700, all right? So if you just said that you only received $6,500.
Well,
So where did the other $2,000, $3,000 come from?
No, sir. What I said, let me correct something. We spent $7,200
No.
local and state dollars.
No, in your earlier presentation,
Right.
when you were going through that, you said you
$6,521 is adequacy.
That's what the state.
That's what the state says every student is. That's based upon an average teacher salary. That's based upon a 500 student school. It's based upon you're going to spend this much money for technology, this much money for transporting each kid, this much money for administration, this number of teachers, etc. We receive more than that. The number you're talking about, over 9,300 plus to 1,000, is federal funds also for special education and students that are at risk. Federal dollars.
So on average, it's $9,300 per student.
About that is what you receive in all those funds, with most of those funds being dedicated to be spent for specific programs.
Right. All right, so you're saying this is a 10-year projection, and I'll say that I agree that you need a millage increase. I'll come out and say that straight up. But when you're looking at a 10-year projection, in 10 years, you could go ahead and say that we'll need another millage increase. So if you're going to build the best school district in the state, why not do something different? Why not issue a bond, take the millage increase, or maybe a little more millage increase, and pay with cash? Because that will give you about $25 million on a conservative estimate on amortization of 30 years, more than what you're going to receive if this passes.
Okay, I don't understand how you raise the capital to build the buildings to do it.
You don't have to build them today. If you say it's immediate need, you won't have school tomorrow for some kids, correct?
Not all of them are immediate needs. These are projected needs also that the state projects with your student growth. How are you going to house these students? So you're going to have to raise the capital to build these buildings in order to meet those needs. Not all of them. I'll give you that.
No, I said that you could do more if you paid it with cash.
If we had the cash, yes.
And you would receive that cash as it comes in. You might not build the arena in 3 years. You may not build an $11 million cafeteria in 3 years. But as the cash comes in, you would be able to build those items as you need it. I have a problem with financing a 10-year solution over 30 years. The school district cannot sell, like if I was going to buy a house, I could finance it for 15 years, and if it's not big enough, I could sell it and roll the capital into a new house. But unfortunately, the school district can't do that. Because you have a limited, a limited number of people who would buy a school. So you're financing this for 30 years when you should really focus on short term, since it's going to be a short-term projection.
I don't know that we could raise enough mills, people would vote enough mills to be able to even generate enough dollars to build the buildings that we would need within the first 3 to 5 years. And if we don't have those roofs, those classrooms, that's when I think the state takes even greater action.
So do you think they would give you more mills if you issued a lesser number of amount of bonds? Or you just want to go ahead and say, hey, this is the best we can do?
I
Because
don't.
you've already said it, this young man spoke, that he thinks we have the best school in the state. I agree with him, or my kids wouldn't be down here. I'm asking you to do something a little different, do something different than Cabot. You know, we talk about Cabot. Cabot only has $60 million of debt. We're going to pile $72 million on top of $60 million. And you're strapping $14,866 per student of debt on your school district. And that's what we're living in now. We need to stop that. When these kids come out of college, if they have student loans, average loan on the college student is about $65,000. That's crazy. But you're coming around and you're putting it in that environment. You're saying, hey, it's okay if you can use debt. That's not right. That's not true. We should be doing better, and we should build with cash or short-term debt, not long-term debt for a short-term solution. And that's the issue I have. I'll give you more mills if you promise not to do it. 30 million.
And I think you would. I don't know that the majority of the people would if you raised the kind of mills that we'd have to do that. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your options. At this point, we don't have that option today.
Let me give you another scenario. You say $200 on $200,000 times 30 years. That's a full year of child care that this lady right here could be paid. Or somebody else who has children that work in Little Rock, they have toddlers in school. That's a full year of school year of daycare you're asking them to give up. It's also a whole year or maybe more of people's food on the table. I'm asking you to get back up and look at a cash option or a short-term debt option.
At this point, sir, I don't have that option.
Well, let me ask this point. To his point, I know what he's saying. I wish it would work that way. You'd have to raise much higher millage, but there's no penalty for paying that bond off early. Can you do that?
You can. I'm not sure you can. At this point anymore, I don't know if the bond system works. Used to do callable bonds, so that whatever mills were dedicated to those were actually whatever your assessment growth was, those dollars went in. That's the whole plan of using this. Is that I can tell you in 10 years, I don't know that you will have to raise the millage. I think that with the assessment growth that you have in this district, that will continue to grow to a point where you can leverage and sell second lien bonds, not have to extend the debt, not have to add any debt, and continue to add structures and buildings. At the same time, you're exercising your needs and actually taking advantage of the state's program, as well as putting money away. I mean, I think it's important that we take some money and put it in the building fund to plan for that second elementary school 5 years down the road. So you don't have to have any other millage increase. I would tell you, I don't think that you will have to do that. Now, what I can't tell you is what the student numbers are going to be in 10 years. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. I mean, in 10 years, 5 years, 4 years, we don't know what the economies will be. We don't know what's going to happen with Little Rock, Pulaski County, North Little Rock. I mean, they're talking about, will that be 5 districts, 6 districts, or maybe 1 district?
And I agree with you. You made a valid point. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in 30 years, and you're putting us on the hook. You're encumbering the whole community to debt, and we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And you know, you've listed the cafeteria. I understand kids have to have a roof over it. $11 million. I've built buildings in my career. $11 million is a pretty big building.
It is big.
And you know, $15 million arena. If you're going to use it for community organizations, why don't you go to the city and say, what can you do? Because the city's hurting for economic development positions, and you're asking them to send $25 million of local tax dollars to outside banks. And I don't know that's not even with the bond loan. I don't even know what the First Security Bank or Cruising Association want to charge you for that. But you're asking.
Oh, when the bonds are sold?
That's right. $25 million of local tax dollars over 30 years will be sent outside of this area.
If those bonds get sold outside, yes.
Majority of them will. You've only got a limited number of banks in here that want to buy them.
We have a lot of individuals in the state that buy these bonds. Matter of fact, our old boss buys a lot of school bonds.
Yeah, I've looked. I know there are individuals, but they don't buy them in great numbers as a bank buys.
Not as much as some banks, but we're seeing a lot more individuals and groups, local groups, state groups, because they're some of the best investments you can have. They're guaranteed by the state of Arkansas.
That's true.
I mean, and that's why we get the interest rates that we get.
And you got to realize that you're asking these taxpayers for a lot of money, and he already mentioned it. We've seen poor design buildings. I mean, Hill Farm was at capacity when it opened. You can't take any more kids there, right?
But that one is full, yes.
That's full. So I think that's financed over 30 years. I think that's a bad decision.
Well, and we'll resell those bonds?
You're gonna call those bonds and resell those?
Yes.
So what's that gonna cost? Because there's a load on callable bonds.
Well, because of the interest rate, well, they've actually been out there long enough that there's no penalty and there's no, so we'll actually have we project a lower interest rate than what we had on those bonds.
All right.
So there'll actually be a savings.
That's why I was asking, because we've got the old college savings bond program that had a 30-year note. And it came to where you could call those bonds and reduce the amount that you and I end up having to pay, which actually comes off the top of state government right now. So it's going to reduce that amount and reduce the amount of years. And I think that's, I mean, there's other districts that do it.
But there's also the email that came out that when this is said and done, if this passes, the district will have $130 million of debt. That came from the district.
The total debt on the
Will
district
be
is
$130 million. That's almost the highest in the state. The only ones, you have 22,000 people in Pulaski County School District. That's the highest. Then you have Bentonville and the Northwest Arkansas. They also have more students than what we have. But when you look at the student, I mean, Benton has a high one, but those will be done shortly, within the reasonable. But we got to do something different. You've got to do something different without carrying this debt around. Because what could you do with $25 more million? You build 2 cafeterias.
Well, it's not any different than what we choose to do when we mortgage a house. Whether we choose a 10-year mortgage, a 15-year mortgage, 25, or 30-year mortgage.
That's right. But unfortunately, for you, it's the public's money. For us, when we're private money, we choose what we do about it. So I would think that the district would assume more fiduciary responsibility in making those decisions. I'm telling you, 30 years out on a arena you don't have to have on a cafeteria that seems to be overpriced. It's kind of, can be
again, we hope it's not overpriced. I mean,
but still, when you do that, you've already issued $72 million of bonds.
Right. So, but if we can get it at a lower, if we can get that cafeteria lower than 17 million, then we're going to use those funds that we save to continue the renovations of old buildings at the high school, continue to upgrade buildings that were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, so that they are managing the education of tomorrow's students, expanding our career educational programs. What we're hoping is to free those things up. What I did want to do, and you want to be careful of doing, is going out and selling a bond issue and selling a plan and a program, and then when you go to bid, you can't afford to do it. So you've underestimated what your billings are going to be. We're not overestimating, we're just being very, very conservative with what we're doing. I'll tell you, our buildings aren't going to be LEED certified. They're not going to be high cost per square foot buildings. They will look good and have curb appeal, but they're going to be built at the best per square foot value that we can get out of it.
What's the estimate? What's the estimate you're using for that?
On which one? They're so different. I mean, each one of them is different because some of them are renovations, some of them,
I'm talking like the new buildings. What's the cost per square foot on your new?
I don't know them right offhand. What the elementary is less than the middle school. The middle school is less than that high school cafeteria. I say that, no, the high school cafeteria is actually less. I don't have that with me in our thoughts. We can get that for anybody that wants it. Because we used it per square foot, the architect and the construction management team did to give us those estimates.
How much money have you spent so far on this election?
Have we spent? I hadn't spent a penny.
The school district hasn't spent anything.
I hadn't spent a penny.
So who has? Signs on free.
His group.
They were donated.
Actually, the signs were free.
Oh, sweet.
They were donated.
Dr. Campbell, can I address something about them saying Hill Farm is at capacity? Hill Farm is at capacity because some of the Bryant elementary kids went there, some other kids shuffled around, and they're there because that's a new school and it's closer to their home. So Bryant Elementary is not at capacity now. So it shuffles around, and there's a bunch of houses being built. And another thing, as a mother, I have 3 kids. My oldest is 27. We moved from South Carolina here so that my child could attend school. she didn't go to college because she didn't come from Bryant. My 20-year-old is in college. My sophomore is going to college because of the school system and how good it is. And I love Bryant. And if we can keep this standard, if we can keep where these kids can take a college class in high school and save $300 or $400 on a college class, it's worth the $50 a year millage on my property. Heck yeah. And if you don't see the investment that you're putting into your community by keeping these standards where they are, then I don't know what to tell you.
Other questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a possibility that in the near future that the high school students will be graduating with possibly an associate's degree?
That's my plan, yes, ma'am. We've been working, Dr. Walters has been working with both Pulaski Tech, and we know ULR has done that with Greenbrier. So they started that program for next year. We'll watch and see how that works. That's my goal. I think if we can see a student walk across the stage, not only get a high school diploma, but also get an associate degree or a technical degree, they're one step ahead of a student who's just walking across and they don't have a future. Because they're not going to go to college. We're kidding ourselves if we think 100% of our students are going to go to college. We're kidding ourselves if we think that every job out there is going to require a college degree. It's not. But we do know that many of the jobs are going to require education beyond high school. And what I tell our students every time I get to talk to them is, you better learn to reinvent yourself. Because I changed jobs 8 times. I've never changed my career. 31 years I've been an educator. They're going to change careers. The research tells us they'll change careers, not jobs. And so we have to tool them up and get them ready to be relearners. So we have to give them all the skills and tools they need. But if we can get them on that track to that next level, and Shane and I worked hard to try to create some legislation to make that happen at the high school. And now those doors are open. And I think it's a great possibility for us to have for our students.
I applaud you with that idea and with the board's idea for doing that, and to also recognize college and the career tech type degrees as well. I applaud y'all for thinking about those 2 areas of expertise for these students. Thank you.
Well, we have to build some partnerships with our business communities. Other questions? Shane, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Anybody else have anything, any questions, concerns? Anybody want to come up here and speak? You're more than welcome. This is your opportunity. It's a community forum. If not, I don't know what TV show comes on next, but I'm sure we're missing one. If you want to get home and do homework or watch TV. But thank you all for coming out tonight. If you want more information, there is a website that the district has that is on the information. The website for the Building for Tomorrow Committee is buildingbryant.org. Facebook page, more information that we'll have this week. If you have questions about voting or anything like that, we're around to try to help answer any questions. So thank you all for coming tonight, and hope you have a safe trip home.